Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about foreign and domestic policy in the United States. The domestic policy is going to be a review, foreign policy is going to be new. So far in this unit, we've talked about westward expansion and we've been talking about Native Americans and how they were treated during the time period of western expansion. These have been domestic policies and problems in the United States. A domestic policy deals with internal issues, or issues that exist only in the United States. So, for example, if I have a pet, they are a domesticated animal because I train them, they live in my house. So, they are my priority. However, in a country, that means that you are dealing with whatever is within your own country. So I want you to think about what are some domestic issues that we deal with as a nation today, or in more basic terms, what are some problems that exist within the United States today? And I have to add this disclaimer, it is totally fine to have opinions about United States politics, the economy, social structure, anything to do with the United States. It's okay to have different opinions, or to think that something's a problem that somebody else might not necessarily agree with. However, it is not okay to put someone else down because of their beliefs. So I do not want to see on your papers that a domestic problem is that we have people that are of a certain religion, or people who are of a certain race, or people who are of a certain gender. I don't want to see anything like that that's going to be targeting any set of individuals. Think about, is there a problem in politics? Is there a problem in the economy? Is our economy doing poorly? Can we do something to make more money? Is there a problem in our social structure? Are the rich too rich? Do you think that the government should regulate them? Do you think that we're being taxed too much? Do you think we're not being taxed enough? So on and so forth. So think about that and write your thoughts down. Some key vocabulary for this lesson. First thing you need to know is domestic policy, which I just talked about. So the definition is it deals with internal issues, or in this case, issues that exist only in the United States. There's foreign policy, which is how the United States interacts with other countries. So if you're talking about foreigners, those are people who are coming from other countries. So foreign policy, when we deal as a nation with other countries. Another term you need to know is isolationist, which is an example of a foreign policy. And when you are an isolationist, you are a person or a nation that does not get involved with anybody else. Typically, somebody who lives in isolation is alone, they keep to themselves. So those are the three words. I need you to make sure that you write those definitions down in your note sheet. Some review. People in the United States were excited to seek a new life in the West. However, moving west meant taking land from Native Americans. This is stuff that we've already learned about, so I'm going through it pretty quickly because we should know it already. So, taking land from Native Americans led to multiple conflicts between the United States settlers and the Native Americans. Originally, the United States tried to assimilate the Native Americans into American culture, but this did not work because the Native Americans liked their culture, and they believed in their culture, and they wanted to keep that. As a solution, the United States creates reservations where Native Americans can live and practice their culture. So this is an example of domestic policy because a quote-unquote problem that we saw in the United States was that Americans wanted to move west, however, the Native Americans were living out there, and this is how we dealt with it. So it's a problem that existed only in the United States, again making it a domestic problem or part of our domestic policy. So we know how the United States deals or dealt with issues in the nation, but how do the United States interact with the rest of the world? because we haven't really talked about that yet. We've mostly been talking about things that have only happened within the country. So we're going to kind of start talking about how the United States finds its place in the world as a superpower. And it's going to start here in this unit. So, United States foreign policy. Foreign policy means how the United States interacts with other countries. This was one of the definitions that we looked at a little while ago. So, let's see how the United States begins to interact with the rest of the world. Originally, the United States was isolationist, meaning that they were not involved in anything. Again, one of your vocab words. This is because the United States was a relatively small, new nation. They didn't want to upset the bigger, more powerful countries. So when the United States was starting out, you can kind of think of them like children. So when you're first growing up, you need a lot of guidance, you need a lot of structure, and then as you get older and you become more of a teenager, you're able to kind of figure things out on your own, and then when you're an adult, you are able to support and manage things for yourself, hopefully. So when the United States started out, it was kind of like a child, where it needed a lot of structure, it didn't know what it was really doing, it was trying to figure out how to be a country and how to govern itself. And then after the United States gets comfortable, it kind of becomes like a teenager, where it's still learning a little bit, but kind of able to do some things on its own, and realizing that some things are working, but other things are not. So, because there were other countries that were very, very powerful, the United States decides to keep to itself. However, as the United States becomes more powerful, they become more involved with the world. So we're going to look at a couple of different places that the United States becomes involved. The first one is the United States and the Pacific Ocean. So there's this thing called the open door policy. So the United States wants materials from across the Pacific Ocean, mostly in China. However, most of the European powers were already there. So the United States holds a meeting with the European powers and China and says, I understand that we are a young country and that we haven't really been in China very long, but let's set up this open door policy where China trades equally with all other countries, including us. So if we want Chinese tea, we get the same amount as Britain gets, as Portugal gets, as France gets, so on and so forth. And this shows that the United States is willing to work with European countries and make sure that they're able to get some benefits. This cartoon depicts the open door policy, and that's all I'm going to tell you about it, because I want you to do the observe, reflect, and question chart. You need to have 2 in each column, and then when you're finished, I want you to answer the question at the bottom of the page. So in case you don't know, the person standing in the middle is Uncle Sam, and then the people surrounding Uncle Sam, these are all people who are representing different European countries. And that's all I'm going to tell you. So you have now to complete that activity. Continuing in the Pacific Ocean, we have Hawaii, which we know is now a United States. It's part of the United States, sorry. Before becoming a state, though, Hawaii was an empire that ruled itself. It had its own government, its own religion, its own cultural practices. And the United States saw that Hawaii provided an excellent climate for sugar to grow. So, Hawaii was going through this change where the leader ended up killing a lot of people that were part of a religion and just saying that that religion is not practiced in Hawaii anymore. So then he was allowing people to buy land, and a lot of the people in Hawaii didn't really have a lot of money. So outsiders would come in and purchase the land, and the United States is one of those outsiders. So they go in, they buy land in Hawaii, and they set up large sugar plantations. The United States also sends missionaries to teach the Hawaiian people about Christianity, because they want the Hawaiians to have some form of religion, which is a way to assimilate people into United States culture. Eventually in 1959, which is fairly recent in history, Hawaii becomes an official part of the United States. So we see in the United States that there's an opportunity in Hawaii where we can use the climate in Hawaii to grow things that we want to grow. In Latin America, this is where we're going to be spending quite a bit of time as we talk about the Spanish-American War. So we need to know a little bit about Cuba first, or some people say Cuba. So I'm going to say Cuba. So the United States was also involved with Cuba because they had large sugar plantations. Cuba is another place. It's actually very close to the United States. It's only 90 miles south of Florida. And it's a very hot climate. It's a perfect place for growing sugar. So eventually, Cuba holds a revolution because Cuba was under Spanish control, and they wanted to be free from that. And I'm not going to say too much else about it because you're going to learn more, but this will eventually be one of the factors that leads to the Spanish-American War. So the United States of America is going to go to war against Spain. And I'm going to leave it at that. So at this point, you have finished the notes for today on United States foreign policy. We're going to be talking more about it, but we still have to kind of get more context. And the way that I want to do this is I have given you, or the substitute has given you, a sheet that has vocabulary terms on it. And I want you to research the terms. So you have to read and put the information in your own words. Next to each term, you're going to write down the information that you find. You can do bullet points. You do not have to do complete sentences. And if this is not finished in class, it is for homework due on Thursday. So this time you don't need to cite your sources. However, if you hand stuff to me and it has very advanced vocabulary words in it and it's not written the way that you would write, I will know that and you're not going to get credit for this assignment. So you need to make sure that you are reading and that you are putting the information in your own words, which is why I have it in bold here. It's very, very important for you to do. And just by way of announcement, tomorrow our class is going to be in the auditorium, and we're going to be listening to a presentation from a Holocaust survivor, which I think is going to be really, really cool. This will be both 8th and 9th period. My 8th period students, please come to class first. 9th period kids, I will find you in the presentation to make sure that you're already there. You should already be there because all 8th graders are going to this presentation. Remember that if you do not finish your Spanish-American War vocabulary, it is due on Thursday.